Hi. Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee, Fios One News, Long Island, and Fios One News, New Jersey.
And Joe Rayo, Fios One News, Lower Hudson Valley.
We're lit a little better today. Welcome aboard tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show for Tuesday, June the 19th. Spring has kind of moved right along, and summer almost here.
Our last full day of spring tomorrow from an astronomical sense, and then we make the transition on Thursday morning at 6:09 a.m.
That's correct. And the pattern still looks pretty much what we have been describing. You know, it's funny. I wrote a post today on the long range, and for me, the long range is maybe out 7 to 10 days or so. What I said was that at least through the early part of next week, the pattern we're in, which is really kind of unsummer-like, is going to remain unchanged. Which, of course, somehow got translated by some to mean that I was calling for a cool, wet, non-existent summer for 3 months. You got to read the stuff, folks, okay, and not read into it. We're in this pattern where things keep moving right along, and I think we can illustrate that with the upper air, and we can describe what's going on. So, you know, Joe, we got basically a split flow, and by split flow, we've got two jets. You've got this lovely northern jet right up here, and that keeps bringing down these air masses every couple of days. And then you've got the southern part of the split, which is coming in from the Pacific and rolling across the country with the energy that moves along it. And every couple of days we have some shower issues or some rain issues. This, to me, this is what the jet stream is supposed to look like overnight. I don't see too much change in this when we pull up some of the longer range views of the models. This really doesn't change into early next week.
Yeah, and the fact that we do have that predominant northerly airflow doesn't always necessarily mean that we're going to see significantly cooler. I mean, we were a few degrees cooler today as opposed to yesterday, but what it does mean is that the air flowing from northern Canada certainly is going to be a lot drier. We literally cut our dew point and humidity levels in half from yesterday's sauna today, which made it more tolerable out there, even though many places today, not just in the Lower Hudson Valley, but even on Long Island, reached well into the 80s. In fact, even Montauk got to the lower 80s.
Well, because we had a northwest wind today. Right. It was actually warmer on Long Island today, just about everywhere,
as opposed to yesterday.
Than it was yesterday, because yesterday we had a south wind. Right. Now, I just kind of jumped along here with the jet stream, the upper air. This is for Monday morning, this coming Monday. And it really doesn't look that much different. In fact, this trough that's swinging through probably brings down a quick shot of rather cool air early next week.
You see how those lines are kind of bunched together on the left or west side. We say that that's a diffluent type of flow, a digging trough, if you will.
That would be, I'll put it in...
Right, yeah, that's
in
exactly
orange
right.
There, that area.
And when you see something like that, that means that not only are we going to get into another round of northwesterly winds, but this may be a rather vigorous flow initially, and then it may be maintained for a bit longer period of time than you normally would see at this time of the year.
Right, and the flow, by the way, still remains split. You've got, this jet that's coming out of the Pacific, straight across the Pacific, comes into the west. Part of it goes to the southwest. Part of it goes up into western Canada. So you still have, little weather systems that are going to be rippling along at some point.
Right.
So after this shot, though, it looks like maybe as we head to the very end of the month and maybe the first few days of July, we might have a few days there where it could get very warm. But as we've been pointing out, and you've been saying, the concept of a weather scenario where you're going on for 4, 5, 6, 7 days of 90 plus still does not appear to be in the cards.
No.
It doesn't mean we can't be seasonal for a while. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be warm and humid from time to time. But in terms of a long consistency of hot weather, that just doesn't seem to be in the cards.
I remember back in the 70s when we had these protracted spells that ran like 7, 8, 9 days of just one day after another day after another day of hot and hazy and humid weather. And those were the days, by the way, when New York City was having power problems. Remember the Big Alice power plant in Queens, I think? They called it Big Alice. I don't know why. It was a Con Edison plant that seemingly was always breaking down at the worst possible time when everybody was turning on their air conditioners. And it seems to me like we just don't see that anymore. I mean, I know that we're in a period now of global warming, and yet it seems to me, at least, that in recent years, recent summers, we just don't get those long, prolonged spells of heat and humidity.
It has been a while. I mean, it has been. But we did. I forgot, what was it? A couple of years ago, where we had that long streak where temperatures the highs were 80 or above.
Right.
That went for a long period of time, and that, in a lot of ways, almost compensated for the fact that we didn't necessarily go to 90 plus for 10 or 11 or 12 days. That was a very long period of very warm weather, as opposed to these sort of heat wave bursts. But the first order of business is going to be the short range, and it looks like we'll probably get into a little bit of rain on tomorrow night. The weather front that went through yesterday, Joe, is now pushed down into Virginia. There's been some active thunderstorms in parts of Virginia, the Delmarva Peninsula this evening. They're moving southward, but we've got clouds out to the west, back in the Ohio Valley. That's this little wave that's going to be going by just to our south tomorrow night. We'll probably get some rain out of that.
I was fascinated by watching this earlier this afternoon. Just literally some of these thunderstorms across the Ohio Valley popping up literally out of nowhere, but also. As they got stronger, I noticed that the blow off, the cloud cover, the blow off from the thunderheads, literally were blowing from south to north. There must have been a fairly vigorous southerly airflow to cause all that cloud cover to suddenly blow northward from where those thunderstorms were developing, and it was very interesting. And that was on the our visible satellite combined with the radar. You were able to really see that very well.
Here's the radar right now. How in terms of the activity, the thunderstorms that were to our south continue to drop southward, but you can see those showers and some heavier thunderstorms back through Indiana and Illinois. That's all a part of a very long area of severe weather threat, and the area that's back through western Kansas and eastern Colorado, that's part of a tornado watch that's still up for eastern Colorado, and a severe thunderstorm watch that's up for parts of Kansas. Let me just say hi real quick to Tara Hayes. Hi, Tara. Hope you're doing well. And Jim DeGrande is on. Good to see you, Jimmy. That system there, by the way, and also a reminder, it's 8:54. So if you're watching this on overnight, just bear in mind this was at 8:54 p.m. Eastern time. So you might want to check with your local National Weather Service forecast office and their local radar at whatever time you're watching to get a more updated look. And we've got some Gulf moisture, by the way, from a upper trough and a tropical wave that didn't really develop into anything, but they're still getting some heavy rains in parts of southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. But the boundary zone, Joe, it splits cuts right across almost 35 degrees north.
Right.
And we are to the north of that, so
thankfully,
we're not in the persistent heat and humidity, at least the way it looks at the moment.
But it looks like after we get through the end of the week, that area of moisture or that area of high humidity that is at the moment cut off and off to our south is going to lift up in our direction. And unfortunately, for the first official weekend of summer, it looks, if you have to give it one single word, it looks like it's going to be humid. Quite humid. We're looking at dew point temperatures which up until Friday will be generally in the 50s, and then they'll jump right into the mid-60s and maybe upper 60s Saturday and Sunday, which also alludes to the fact that with those kind of dew point temperatures, the air will be moist enough so that we may see some pop-up showers and storms. We may also, and we will in fact have, a triggering mechanism, a new weather disturbance moving through during the weekend. In fact, it's that one that you just pointed out for the start of next week on Monday
Right.
is associated with that. So we may unfortunately have to deal with some occasional showery weather as well over the upcoming weekend. Although it doesn't look like a washout, but you kind of would like to see some of that nice, dry, sunny weather that we've enjoyed of late. But it doesn't look like that may be in the cards for this upcoming weekend.
Agreed. So here's the situation. I think tomorrow day side looks okay. We'll probably see increasing clouds, and then there's the rain for Wednesday night into early Thursday. Doesn't get that far north into the Hudson Valley, but certainly gets over New Jersey and Long Island and southeast PA. But by Monday morning, it's done, and we'll Monday might wind. By Thursday morning. Thursday may wind up being somewhat like today, where we start out with some clouds and then they rapidly drop southward. But the next high, Joe, builds up into New England. So Friday, at least for coastal areas in Long Island, probably not getting out of the 70s,
right?
With the wind coming in off the water. And there's the low for Saturday, which goes up toward the Great Lakes. And we're going to have this warm front come up, so it'll make it showery. Right. Maybe even a thunderstorm, but maybe Sunday we might see a little bit of improvement. I don't know. There's a secondary front that's being indicated.
I was thinking
hard to say.
I was thinking that of the 2 weekend days, that with the warm front approaching on Saturday, we'd probably see more cloud cover than sun, with some spotty shower activity by later in the day, and then we'll be in the warm sector on Sunday, and so that'll be the day of the higher levels of dew point temperatures and also the warmer temperatures. It may only be in the 70s if we get an onshore flow on Saturday. Sunday, everybody may reach into the 80s, and we may see showers and scattered storms, especially later in the day. And of course, then the next weather front moves through on Sunday night, and that sets us up for a couple of beautiful days on Monday and Tuesday. If you have to be looking at that
now,
days off.
well, we have to see if this is real, because it looks like, at least from the standpoint of the GFS, wants to get that front hung up a little bit. Going into early next week, and it starts to do something with it. Now, whether it's real or not remains to be seen. That's actually, that high coming down early next week, 1025 high this time of year is, that's a reasonably strong high.
Right.
And, it's going to be a matter of whether there's enough of a push. We'll have to see how this upper air evolves with that trough swinging around. Does it dig down or does it move right along and kick away to the northeast? Suddenly the GFS wants to make some problems here early next week with a little coastal low there, but let's see if we get confirmation over the next couple of days over whether that's real or not.
You know how these things sometimes they have like what I call a computer burp.
Right.
They come up with this fantasy of what we're seeing right now on the screen, that low. And then where is it a few days from now?
Right, it may not even be there. I think it really hinges on whether that that sharp trough in the upper atmosphere, this thing, it seems to rather than just get kicked along, it kind of drops it just to our east. I don't know if that's real.
The old game of splits and blocks, and if everything falls into place just at the right moment in time, you can end up getting, a teleconnection, so to speak, and suddenly have something pop up out of nowhere. And then you run the computer again 12 hours or 24 hours later, and you just don't quite get that connection, and what you were looking at, previous to that is gone.
After that does pull out, it looks like a bit of a ridge tries to build. This is toward the last days of June and going into the first days of July, but you still have that northern jet close by, so there might be something in there that flattens it out. We'll have to see when we get there. That's too far out in the long range.
What we may end up getting is warm to hot, stretch of days, but with a west-northwesterly flow, it may be not necessarily humid. We may have one of those. I'm not going to say Arizona-like days, because in Arizona, if you ever saw in Arizona a dew point of 50 in July or August, to them that's humid. But
that's sweltering.
But 50 degree dew points with a 90 degree or 85 degree temperature for us, hey, that ain't bad for us.
By the way, we have that extra light, so it really looks like we have only one arm each. Same color shirt and almost the same tie.
Right.
We are two separate people, okay?
It looks like you got a nice burn.
I'm a little tan.
A little tan,
Yeah. Well, I was out doing some yard work. I took down a tree yesterday. Doing work around the pool.
Hey, if you want to come over to my house, I have sadly, it almost brings my wife to tears. We had a beautiful oak tree in our yard, and the gypsy moths did a fairly lousy job of. I say lousy in the sense that they did a great job in killing it, and now it's just sitting there bare. So if you want to come over and bring that, but that's like a 70-foot tree. I know you bring down 40-foot trees, but 70.
Yeah, 70's a little bunchy,
and besides that, your tree is like on the edge of your property. This one's like right in the middle. I don't know. You bring that tree down, where are we going to put it after it comes down?
Jimmy Zindel saw his first firefly of the season in Jersey City.
I was wondering about that the other night when I was looking out the window. I think it was on Saturday. I was looking for a long time and saying, are there any fireflies out there yet? Usually they come about, mid-June, mid or late June.
Yeah.
So, Ginny, thank you. Your firefly observation.
And also when the humidity starts getting up there. I noticed that last night the bullfrogs were screaming again in my neighborhood. They already took over. They took over my pool as it is, with all the tadpoles that are in there. But I seem to have resolved that problem.
Yep.
But we'll just leave it at that. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, Joe. The tropics are quiet. There's nothing that looks like it's going to develop anywhere. There's a bit of a tropical wave east of the Windward Islands, but the upper winds are not favorable. By the way, you know what? Let me see if I can bring that up. Just give me 1 second here, because I was looking at this today again. Service. This will just take me a second. That's not what I wanted. Okay, we can do it this way now. So I was looking at the ocean water temperature anomalies, and once again. All right, so now let's show everybody here. So this is. What we're looking at on this map is the below and above average in terms of the ocean water temperatures, and particularly, kind of looking at the Atlantic. And it's really interesting, Joe. You look at that horseshoe of cold water that runs, and by the way, that's significantly cold water that's sitting off of Newfoundland. We're talking almost 3 degrees below average Celsius.
Right.
Okay, so that's 5+ degrees Fahrenheit from southeastern Canada, goes east to almost England and Ireland, but then bends down southward. That's the Atlantic current, continuing to drag that cold water down to off the coast of Africa and throughout much of the tropical and even some of the subtropical Atlantic. The other thing is also in the Northwest Caribbean, which is where you usually see development this time of year, if you're going to see it, water temperatures there are also running below average.
So do you think that perhaps, I've been seeing a few people on other Facebook pages saying, well, the overall sea surface temperature anomalies look very similar to 1985. And of course, 1985 we had Hurricane Gloria.
Well, there were three Category 3... there were 3 majors that year, regardless of the water temperature profile now, and I think that's my the caveat here. This is all fine and dandy at the moment, but we don't know that this is going to be the case when we get to August and September. Now, look, that cold water bleeding down from Greenland, that actually started back at the end of February, and has continued. So it could very well continue right through the next couple of months. On the other hand, we could see something in the overall pattern that corrects that to some degree, and that's the big unknown here, is whether this is going to wind up being corrected over time. The interesting thing is the area in the middle, in the subtropical Atlantic, north of about 20 to 25 degrees north, to just south of us, because we're below average here, but just south of us, water temperatures are near or a little bit above average at this point. So, there could be mixed results here. Maybe it means that the Cape Verde season is weaker than what we've been seeing in past years. On the other hand, it might mean that the storm development areas west of 50 degrees west or west of 60 degrees west might be a bit more active. I don't really think you can draw like huge conclusions.
Well, that's
here.
what some of these genius
Yeah.
some of these other Facebook pages have been saying, is that a lot of the activity this particular season will not be necessarily off of Africa, the Cape Verde and these African waves that develop, especially at the height of the season. But they keep saying because the water is so warm, or relatively warmer, in places to the north and to the northeast of the Leeward Islands, for example, or adjacent to the eastern seaboard, that's where you're going to be seeing a lot of the development, so to speak, when we get into August, September.
Maybe. Remember, that is below average. You could still have below average ocean water temperatures there in August and September, but the water temperatures themselves will still be above the threshold
degrees,
for tropical storm development anyway.
Right.
So, you don't know. The upper wind conditions are going to be far more important through all of this, and that's the variable that I think that is probably more important than the ocean water temperatures at this particular point.
And they're also talking about an El Nino now taking form in the coming months.
Well, if you look at the water temperature anomalies at the moment, you don't really see much of a sign of an El Nino yet.
They've never really been able to adequately or accurately predict El Nino. They can look at it, make an educated guess, and especially so with other things like the PNA, for example, is something that they just...
The Pacific North America Oscillation.
Right. So... I do have one thing, and I made this announcement at the end of last night's Joe and Joe show. I mentioned that next Tuesday night at the Hayden Planetarium, I'm going to be giving a talk along with Ted Williams, not the baseball player, but a very well-known assiduous amateur astronomer down in the Philadelphia area. The two of us together are going to be giving a talk on the upcoming summer skies, about Mars and about the Perseid meteor shower and everything else. And I invited our Joe and Joe viewers to check out my page and get information if they wanted to come next week. Forget about it. I found out this morning that it is all sold out. All four, and that's something. 440 seats.
That's awesome.
They are all sold out. So I'm sorry that if you missed out on this go around, maybe next time, but. That's surprising to me because
I'm not at all surprised. You are so loved and popular.
I usually average like 200 maybe 200, but it must be
Pshaw.
But it must
bag of shells.
But it must be the events coming up this summer and everybody wants to get in on it, and so anyway, that's the story.
Rocco Fridella says, guys, got it. How does Saturday look for a family barbecue? Not so good since you didn't invite either of us. Chris Bailey, winter. We have a relatively small but loving crowd tonight, and winter we get up to 500 people or more watching our videos. In the summer it's 30 plus. Yes, we know who our friends are.
Well, we at one point we had one session where we had 800 or 900 people.
We broke 1,000.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. Then you get enough nor'easters. I'm sure that if we somehow manage to get some kind of a tropical cyclone this summer that threatens the eastern seaboard of the United States, that all of you will come, not the 30 or 40 of you who are here now, but all the others will come running back to get the best information on the internet about that.
Michael Odell, you've got this perception that of what we're supposed to be having this time of year, totally out of kilter, okay? Why are we actually having fall now? We've actually skipped.
Yesterday was fall. Today was fall.
Stop it. Okay, that's just. I don't know what you think. I mean, is this sort of the comparable to the snow lovers of the winter who think that it should be snowing from November 1st to April 30th?
It was
every
82
single
89
day
today.
We're not that. I mean, I'm just gonna let me just really quick. I want to just check this. I'm now. You got my curiosity stoked a bit. Let's see. I am going to check, Joe. New York's. Going to check New York City. I think that's probably a fair place. And let's look at their daily climate report. And where are we? Temperature. Okay, so we got to 88 today, 75 after 2 days of 90 plus. I'm just trying to figure out where we are for the month. No, average is 81, okay? The average high this time of year is 81, not 99, okay? Just give me a second here. Departure, I think I'm going to have to look at the other page. Let's see, preliminary monthly climate. That'll probably give it to me. Okay, so far this month, Joe Rayo, you read that. Departure from normal. What does that say to you?
0.2.
0.2 degrees above average, okay? So let's round it off to 0. We are actually having an average June. So where you get this idea that we're having fall-like weather is ridiculous. My Uncle Alfred is on. Good to see you. My Uncle Alfred flies. Yeah, he likes to fly. So I don't know exactly where he is. If he's in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or on Long Island someplace.
Rocco says we don't need an invitation.
Bless your heart. Thank you. So look, let's get this idea that it's supposed to be 100 degrees every day in the months of June, July, and August completely out of your system. Because one, this isn't Florida or Arizona. Not that Florida gets to 100, but I'm just saying.
Right.
We are actually having an average June after an above average May and a colder than average April. So I think the problem is that we've had probably an overabundance of cloudy days where that takes its toll psychologically.
How many months have we had now that have been consecutive with below normal?
We had November, December, January. February was above. March and April were below, so that was 5 out of 6. May was above, and June so far is dead even. So, more.
It might actually trend toward slightly above normal as we get to the second half of this month.
It might. Yeah. We'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. Corey Bodziak, good to see you. You've been super busy. I totally get it. Believe me. Let's see, just trying to make sure I got last 3 or 4 years, we've had a lot of ridges in the east. Can this pattern hold possibly until September? That's a good point, John Delfino. That actually has been the case. In fact, we've seen those ridges pop up later in the summer and last into the first part of the fall, where they've been around through September and a good chunk of October. Now, whether the pattern, the pattern that we're in now, which favors these changes every few days, whether that continues or not beyond the next week or so, that remains to be seen. I don't know what the answer to that question is in terms of the long term. I like to watch these things just sort of evolve and play themselves out. That's how I've always approached it.
I've noticed, Joe, it's 9:14. So you.
Oh, it's time for me to go. Ivan must be throwing a fit. All right, so. You don't forget, Mr. Rayo is going to be coming on Fios One News Hudson Valley in just a little bit, so you can get the latest weather there.
And if you are checking out Long Island weather or New Jersey weather, you happen to be a subscriber to Fios, then yours truly, Mr. Chiaffi, will be on to update you and give you the latest weather prospects for those slabs of real estate.
Yes, Brian Fitzgerald and Jeff Banson have everything covered in the morning on Fios One News.
And it will be Brittany Borer and Addison Green, who I did not see his name here tonight.
He's doing laundry or something. He's getting ready for tomorrow.
They will be there at midday, and then tomorrow, Joe is going to be doing a
solo. You're off tomorrow, so you'll be back on Thursday.
I'll be back on Thursday and Friday. I'm having my ears checked tomorrow by my hearing.
Good. It's always a good thing.
Yes, it's nice to have good ears.
Yeah, they take you to Home Depot. They take the air blower and they just knock everything out of it.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Have a great evening, and we will see you. I'll see you tomorrow. Joe will be back with me on Thursday.
Okay. Au reservoir.
Bye-bye.